On March 7, I happened upon Twitter, and found an army official communicate about the statue burning in Santiago during the regularly scheduled protests. Those words in the data from Chilean media, anti-Chilenos, Coberides Desadaptados and antisocials come from the communicate, mainly. But they didn't represent a shift, or some scandal about the military's discourse. People in Twitter were reminding us of how anti-Chilean was used by the army during the last dictatorship in this country, as a way to address their created enemy. Their discourse, especially the use of antisocial, is linked to how Chilean media represent/present/construct those who participate in protests, demonstrations, and riots in general. So I wanted to check this idea, by doing a brief discursive analysis of how the media characterize protesters, choosing news from the 5th and 6th of March, both days relevant to the Chilean burning event. And Paraguay ended up as a point of contrast in discourse, because I also wanted to have another perspective on how media in Latino America, in countries with recent dictatorship histories, construct the figure of the protester. And there happened to be a massive protest during March 5 in Paraguay, which was linked to their coup in 1999, so there was also an army/military element to it. My main methodology for critical discourse analysis here is by Van Dijk and Iniguez. I will focus in macro structures mostly, by checking semantics and word choices. I will also hint towards the superstructure that orchestrates the words and prose selected by the media in each country, leading towards the effects of the discourse in their contexts. As a Chilean who has lived in Chile, I am way more apt interpreting Chilean context, and though I researched about Paraguayan history that lead toward the protest and the Paraguayan march, my interpretations might miss meanings that another researcher could point out. What was produced? Many quotes, used in videos and keep for analysis from the news selected. 2 lists, one of the nouns used for those who participated in the demonstrations on March 5 in Montevideo in front of the parliament, from 22 Media News digital outlet. Another of the nouns used for those who participated in the demonstrations on March 5 in Santiago de Chile in Plaza Dignidad, from 22 Media News digital outlet. I organized the semantic connotations these words held according to their context and social usage in the Spanish language, from my Latino American perspective. This part involves macro structures, where I classify the words into 3 basic categories, as in text analysis, by assigning them an emotional and linguistic charge, formal or indifferent, negative or argumentative, and positive or supportive. These are the groups I ended up with. Connotation semantica, efectos neutralidades, Paraguayo, cybernauta, jovens, civils, organizaciones, adolescent, ciudadanía, familia, parejas, gente, mujer, niños, niñas, internautas, adultos, universitarios. Sujetos, gente, grupo indeterminado de sujetos, grupo de individuos, gran multitud, tipos de personas, grupo de desconocidos, grupos humanos, a quienes participarán, sectors de la población, testigos, grupo de sujetos desconocidos, desconocidos. Positividades, paraguayos, ciudadanía, trabajadores, pueblo, células independientes fuera de rótulos políticos, los que saben. Protagonistas. Negatividades, grupo infiltrado, alquilados, grupos políticos. Vándalos, desconocidos, violentistas, responsables, Protestants, los que hacen llamados a la violencia, coberides, desadaptados, anti-Chilenos, enemigo interno, antisocials, grupo de antisocials, delinquents. From these, there's three main arguments I would like to make. First, that Paraguayan media characterizes protesters as mainly positive subjects in their country/society, whilst Chilean media characterizes them as irrelevant or negative subjects in their country/society. Second, that the Paraguayan protesters is an active subject in the news about them, while Chilean protesters are passive subjects in their news. Finally, that the discourse constructing protesters constructs citizenship, uniting in Paraguay and dividing in Chile. Positive protesting, negative protesting, judging your government from the media. As you can see, in these handy lists I made, Paraguayan media uses more positively and/or supportive words to describe those who participate in the protests analyzed. The only instances of negativity or argumentation come from the suggestion of external forces involved with the original protesters, and not as part of the people who went to protest. This was particularly reinforced when most media did mention that a part of the protesters did push against police, tried to overtake the division separating them from the parliament, and were for some moments violent against law enforcers. From the 22 media outlets reviewed, it was the minority which mentioned the possibility of them being barras bravas or rented hands. Most of them assumed the actions as part of the protest, and gave no judgment towards it. What they did mention was the reason for the protest, which stems not only from COVID mishandling but government corruption. Which in terms of the superstructure of the texts, give us the effect of justifying the protest and protesters' actions, whilst dismissing those that could be viewed as misconducts by bypassing them as issues. Meanwhile, the indifferent words build those protesting as Paraguayans, citizens, netizens, as people who are part of the country, who are acting in behalf of it. And as part of society, of those nuclear groups that can form the social life, by referring to them as families, couples, children, and the people, which happened in some of the media. The indifference or formality when addressing those participating still informs us of a character that forms part of something, of nuclear, close relationships, of the democracy currently instated in the country, and as part of the identity of the country itself. On the other hand, Chilean media is the opposite mostly. From those visited, few gave the reasons for the protests, and they were mentioned as the usual ones, as something that is preset to happen on Fridays, mystifying the social protests. The protesters were scarcely referred to, only in formal/indifferent nouns. Most sources incurred into at least one instance of delinquents, detained ones, violent ones, responsible ones, of the statue burning, or, whether on reference to the army communicate or as part of the media's own view, antisocial ones, maladjusted cowards and anti-Chilean. This protest had as part of it some instances of statue burning, where Baquedano's statue was alight by protesters, fire that was put out by the police shortly after, leaving it mostly intact. This act was addressed in all media outlet researched, which included sources reiterating the information the next day due to diverse reactions from political figures and the army's one. All of them made clear the effort and quick handling of the police of the event, and those involved were mentioned mostly as strangers, or subjects. The formality regarding the protesters was either furthered or renounced. Those that renounced it opted for vandalism, delinquency, and other negatively/argumentative nouns to refer to those participating of these acts during the protest. Most media, thereafter, proceeded to both isolate those who acted in this burning as irrelevant to the mass, as faceless, unvinculated individuals whose action did not reflect the media's perspective. Many used the same language for all protesters throughout their text. They were strangers, groups of strangers, subjects, individuals, type of people, sectors of the population. They were not part of society. They did not belong to the Chilean identity, or to relevant, functional, productive parts of society, they were unknown and not worth involving emotionally with. You stand up for us? The police acted against the riots. My second argument refers to the way the texts were written. When looking up for words used to describe protesters, the sentences I ended up with also provided me with the context into which they were used. Some gave agency to the protesters, they did this, they reunited because of that. Others, instead, reacted to events. Some riots happened, protesters were there, the police dispersed the riots, not the rioters. Again, this changed according to which country we were talking about. In Paraguay, most media empowered the subjects. In Chile, instead, most media made them passive subjects to their own actions. In Paraguayan media, protesters called for a protest. They participated, they mobilized, they created a mostly pacific ambience in the demonstrations. They pushed against police and had confrontations, and police responded to their actions and acted against/with them. In Chilean media, protesters appeared when the statue burned, when politicians complained about their actions, when the army defamed them. The protests are in the city, police handle them. The protesters sometimes are present, most of the time they are not. Riots happen to Santiago, obstacles related to protests impede the traffic circulation, cops act out against events, not people. These narrations reinforce the previous point. In Paraguay, protesters not only are part of society, but they are in power inside of society, they are it, and they can act to create it. In Chile, protesters are an occasional job hazard, a society's liminal subject, whose actions are not as relevant as where they take place, who acts to stop them, and what objects are involved in them. This doesn't change much for when they are the ones actively referred to, they are ostracized, criminalized, and mystified, their actions narrated, their motivations unspoken and their existence a matter of fact, a part of the city's life, rather than a social phenomenon. At most, a matter of legality and force tropes problem. The subjectivity of citizenship, winds of life, winds of guess. Finally, the way citizenship is constructed by the protesters' characterization in each country's media showcases three subjectivities: 1. Where those who oppose the government, who complain about its mishandlings of social issues, who make use of their democratic rights to demonstrate their political stances, are the heart of the citizens of the country. They are building up what means to be a citizen, they stand up for their country and make it what it is, march towards what it will be. Opposite to this, there's another subjectivity which exists in its liminality. They are those who are not, those that belong to a part of society we do not acknowledge as part of us, those that are strangers, individuals who do not represent cohesive groups, but unknown, undefined masses of people who exist in the country, but do not compose it in its identity, nor in its laws or materiality. They do not exist as an united they, each individual person is both a stranger to society and to others like them. And they are not relevant to us, their actions aren't either, acts happen, and theoretically we know someone enacted them, but we only care about the people who righted them, and where it happened, so real people, real citizens, society as a whole unity can avoid those routes, can drive safely, can rest easy knowing cops showed up to the event and stopped it somehow. Detain those that were there, and are responsibilized by politicians and the law enforcers, army, police, of the transpired situations. They are not Chileans, at least not in the narratives the media acknowledges, they are people, yes, but mostly each of them is a person who is not me, not us, and not a citizen of this country. Each of them might have a motivation, but as a group they don't. The protests happen but just in schedule, not for any concrete reason. Cops don't need to respect them, or acknowledge them as people. They are subjects to the law, to judgment, to brutality, to order. This leads us to the last subjectivity showcased, the cops. In all narratives they were a positive subject. They stopped what they had to. They warned society against protests/protesters. They acted as they had to, they were forced to use force. They tried to not use force, they protected us. In Paraguay that meant police tried not to incite violence by not carrying guns. In Chile that meant they detained people participating in the protests, who, or what they were doing not relevant enough to mention, that they used their means as a government tool to stop/control the protests to happen as they preferred them, gassing, hitting, using chemicals against protesters. What do I offer as a conclusion? Mainly I would like you to take away two things. 1. That media, dominant or otherwise, characterizes protesters in line with what their editorial/government agrees with. That the wording, and prose in general utilized to narrate anew is not neutral, it can't be. Discourse is always telling us something. I can't say I was surprised with the Chilean case, but I did not expect to see such blatant unagencying, disempowerment, mystifying construction of the protesters, as if they are unfathomable, and irrelevant all the same. And while the ongoing Chilean social movement, circa 2018 and counting, shows that the people do not forget and have not changed their stance much around what they think is needed for their country, these reiterated narratives of the social protests do constitute them for the population too. Media is, after all, part of how we build society, how we imagine it, how we enact it, how we construe it. I would also like to have as a takeaway how social news construe citizenship. This is not just about protests, these protests arise for reasons, protesters protest against something, and it is relevant to acknowledge what purposes are held towards the ideal world/country/subjectivity by the way media narrates the social issues, characterizes the protesters, views the protests. I'm sure I'm leaving a load of stuff out, I ended up doing this way too late. Science is also slow, and by the time I'm publishing this video these news are kinda old by journalism standards. And I have more information and interpretation capability to engage with the Chilean content than I do with the Paraguayan one, so other scientists could point out differences or additions to what I have done. I hope you found anything interesting here. I'm still trying out how to convey analysis, whether raw, or more processed in this platform, and in this format, and in this economy/life situation Kakaj. So it might change. This analysis ended up as argumentation pillars from discourse analysis, but it lacks the literature to be complete. This would be a preliminary analysis of the results. And I will include the sources later on. I'm tired now. Socially distanced kitten kisses to all, that is to say, slow blinking to all.